Welcome to the Deep Dive. This is where we take a really interesting topic, look at all the info we can find, and pull out the key stuff for you so you can get a good handle on it pretty quickly.
Yeah, get right to the heart of it.
Exactly. And today, wow, we're diving into a story that, it just gripped the entire world back in June 2018.
Hmm.
The unbelievable rescue of the wild boar soccer team trapped deep inside that flooded cave in Thailand. We've looked into this quite a bit, and honestly, you can see immediately why everyone was watching.
Absolutely. It wasn't just a quick news flash, was it? It held everyone's attention for weeks. And what we want to do today really is go beyond maybe the headlines you remember.
Right.
We're going to try and untack the complexities, look at the incredible rescue effort, and understand, what happened and maybe what we can learn from it all.
Okay, so let's start at the beginning. Let's paint a picture. It's June 23rd, 2018. The wild boar soccer team, 12 young boys, we're talking ages 11 to 16, plus their 25-year-old assistant coach. They go into the Tom Luang cave. This is in northern Thailand, after football practice.
Right. And this cave, Tom Luang, it's actually huge. It's the fourth largest in Thailand. It's a popular spot for people to visit, usually.
Usually, yeah, but there's a catch.
There is a big one. Thailand's monsoon season, it typically kicks off around July, brings incredibly heavy rain, risk of serious flash flooding in these cave systems.
And they went in late June, just before.
Exactly. Right on the edge of this really dangerous period.
And, well, as you can probably guess, things went bad fast.
Yeah. Those monsoon rains came down hard, caused major flooding inside the cave system.
And they trapped them, all 13 of them, deep inside this dark, winding cave.
It's terrifying to think about. This system, it goes for about 10 kilometers,
Yeah.
with lots of really narrow squeezes.
So then the rains hit.
Those passages would have filled up incredibly quickly. The first clue something was seriously wrong was when one boy didn't return home. His mother reported him missing. Authorities went to the cave entrance, found their bikes, their shoes, and realized, they were almost certainly trapped inside.
That initial search must have been frantic. What did they face right away?
Oh, absolutely frantic. The Thai Navy SEAL divers went in first, but they immediately ran into just awful conditions. Really strong underwater currents, the water levels rising fast. It made progress incredibly difficult, almost impossible in some spots.
So it was clear right from the start this wasn't going to be easy.
Not at all. Exceptionally difficult and dangerous.
So, okay, they suspected the team was inside, but getting to them was the huge hurdle. How did the search progress then?
Well, they found more signs inside handprints, footprints, which confirmed the boys had gone deeper into the cave, probably trying to escape the rising water.
Right.
Seeing how massive the challenge was, the Thai authorities, they did the right thing. They asked for international help pretty quickly.
And experts started arriving.
Yeah, specialist cave diving teams, rescue experts from the UK, the US, other places too, started joining the effort. They brought specific skills, equipment needed for this kind of extreme environment. The world was mobilizing.
I remember the reports about the weather just being relentless.
Oh, it was a constant battle. Heavy rains just kept coming. They often had to pause the search operations just for the safety of the divers.
Too dangerous to even search sometimes.
Exactly. They had huge pumps running nonstop, trying to drain water out, but it felt like fighting a losing battle at times. They even used drones flying over the mountain, looking for maybe another way in, another opening.
Wow. Trying everything.
Absolutely everything. A massive effort against the clock, against the water. The determination was just something else.
And then, after 9 days, 9 long days of this, they found them alive. That moment must have been
just electrifying. Relief rippled right around the world. It was July 2nd, 2018. 2 British cave divers, Richard Stanton and John Valentin, they did what seemed impossible.
Where were they? How far in?
They found all 13, the boys and the coach, alive. They were about 400 meters beyond a known chamber called Pattaya Beach. So quite a way into this flooded, complex system.
Yeah.
And communication was tough at first. Only one boy, Adol Samon, spoke some English. His ability to communicate became absolutely crucial in those first moments.
Just incredible. 9 days in the dark, water rising.
Yeah.
It's almost impossible to really comprehend what that must have felt like for them.
Unimaginable.
And the cave itself, you mentioned it was complex. What were the specific dangers for the rescuers and for the team trapped inside?
Well, Tom Luang isn't just long, it's incredibly tricky. Really narrow passages. Some spots were so tight that experienced divers actually had to take off their air tanks to squeeze through.
Take off their tanks.
Underwater?
Underwater, in the dark. Now imagine doing that with basically zero visibility,
Yeah.
relying purely on touch, on feel.
Terrified.
Plus, they were fighting strong, unpredictable currents, and there was debris everywhere. Rocks, mud, tree branches washed in by the floods, just hazards everywhere.
And communication underwater. Almost non-existent. Divers were often working pretty much alone, relying entirely on their training, their instincts, and just unbelievable bravery.
That's the rescuer's side. What about the boys' situation? In the chamber where they were found?
That was becoming critical too. The air quality, oxygen levels had dropped down to around 15%.
And normal is what, 21%?
Yeah, around 21%. So 15% is dangerously low. Being exposed to that for a long time, it has serious effects.
And not just low oxygen, right? Carbon dioxide.
Exactly. CO2, what they were breathing out, was building up in that confined space, making the air even worse.
So low oxygen, high CO2.
Hmm.
What would that actually do to them physically?
Well, with oxygen dropping, they'd likely feel symptoms a bit like severe altitude sickness. Bad headaches, feeling sick, no appetite.
Ugh.
And if oxygen drops too fast, you risk serious lung and brain issues. Plus, the high CO2 adds to the nausea, makes you feel flushed, drowsy, confused.
Yeah.
Eventually, you could pass out.
So the cave wasn't just trapping them, it was actively poisoning the air they needed to breathe.
Pretty much. A hostile environment in every sense: water, darkness, narrow spaces, and the air itself.
Okay, so they found him alive, but the air is bad, the cave is flooded. The huge question becomes, how do you get them out? I remember hearing about different, really daunting options being discussed.
Yeah, the experts basically looked hard at three main possibilities.
What were they?
Option 1, teach the boys to dive. These are kids with zero diving experience, remember? Trying to get them through those flooded, narrow, pitch-black tunnels.
Sounds incredibly risky.
Extremely. It was pretty quickly seen as having a tragically high chance of failure. Option 2, just wait. Wait for the monsoon to end. Wait for the floods inside the cave to go down naturally.
How long would that take?
Experts figured it could take months, plural. And with the air quality getting worse, the boys getting weaker, they just didn't have months. Time was running out fast.
So waiting wasn't really viable. What was the third option?
Option 3 was trying to find another way in. Maybe find an unknown passage, or even try to drill down from the mountain surface into the chamber.
Drilling. Wow.
Yeah, but that was a real long shot. Technically very difficult, would take a huge amount of time, and absolutely no guarantee it would even work or hit the right spot.
So none of these options sounded great, which led them to the plan they eventually went with. Something unprecedented.
Right. Faced with these terrible choices, the awful risks and delays of the other options, and the worsening situation inside, they made an incredibly tough call. A high-stakes diving rescue.
But not just a normal diving rescue.
No, this is what made it so unique and ethically so complex. The decision was made to anesthetize the boys for the extraction.
Anesthetize them. Make them unconscious.
Fully unconscious. The idea, the incredibly risky logic, was to prevent panic, to stop them thrashing or struggling during that terrifying journey through the narrow, flooded tunnels. Any uncontrolled movement, any panic, it could have been fatal in that environment.
Putting kids under general anesthesia, underwater, in a cave.
Wow.
That just sounds mind-bogglingly dangerous. Who came up with this? Who could even attempt it?
It was spearheaded by an Australian anesthetist, Dr. Richard Harris, and a veterinarian, Dr. Craig Challen. Crucially, both were also highly experienced cave divers themselves.
Ah, so they had both the medical and the cave diving expertise.
Exactly. That combination was absolutely vital to even consider something this radical. And yeah, it was general anesthesia. Completely unconscious, not just sleepy or sedated. They felt it was the only way to eliminate the risk of panic or a boy accidentally knocking his mask off underwater.
So fully unconscious, being moved through those nightmare passages. How did that work technically?
It's almost hard to wrap your head around. They had full-face diving masks fitted. These masks supplied oxygen under positive pressure, basically a gentle, constant push of air to help them keep breathing while unconscious.
Okay.
But here's the really critical and frankly terrifying part. Unlike in a hospital, there were no breathing tubes, no standard airway protection during the underwater journey.
A breathing tube. While under general anesthesia.
No. It was a massive deviation from normal medical practice, where securing the airway is rule number 1. These unconscious boys had unprotected airways in arguably one of the most dangerous environments imaginable. The risk level was just off the charts.
So how did the divers manage moving an unconscious child through that?
Each boy was paired with one highly skilled rescue diver. That diver was then responsible for guiding and maneuvering that child through the darkness, the tight spots, the currents. A journey that took several hours per bore.
Hours.
Yeah.
And keeping them anesthetized the whole
Yeah.
time.
Yes. Divers who had been specially trained by Dr. Harris administered top-up shots of ketamine, the anesthetic drug, at pre-planned points along the route.
Injections underwater.
Underwater. The divers also had to be incredibly careful to keep the boys' heads positioned slightly up to avoid hitting rocks, and they were constantly watching for the tiny stream of exhaust bubbles from the mask. That was the only visual sign they were still breathing.
Skill, the nerve required for that.
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
It truly is. Immense precision, constant vigilance under unbelievable pressure.
So that was the anesthesia part. Tell us about the broader rescue operation, the logistics, the team.
It was a huge international effort. Some of the world's best cave divers flew in, working alongside the Thai Navy SEALs. A massive team effort.
And they needed support inside the cave too, right?
Absolutely crucial. Support divers worked tirelessly setting up guide ropes, staging air tanks along the route, creating supply lines deep inside the cave system.
A dangerous job in itself.
Tragically so, former Thai Navy SEAL Saman Kunan, a volunteer, died on July 6 while placing air tanks. A heartbreaking reminder of the extreme risks everyone faced, even the most experienced.
Well, I remember that. So sad.
And another diver, Beirut Pakbara, sadly died later from a blood infection he contracted during the rescue. Their sacrifices really highlight the dangers.
Absolutely. So how did the actual extraction unfold over those days?
It was done in stages, over 3 days straight. There was some talk initially about who came out first, but the understanding is they decided to bring out the boys who lived furthest away first. The thinking apparently was they'd have the longest journey home after.
Huh. Interesting detail.
Yeah, and the journey out wasn't just diving. In sections where the water wasn't completely flooding the passage, the unconscious boys were carried on special stretchers, sometimes winched up steep, slippery slopes, even floated on rafts through shallower, flooded areas.
A complex, multi-stage process.
Incredibly complex. The first 4 boys came out on July 8th, then another 4 on July 9th, and finally, the last 4 boys and the coach were brought out safely on July 10th, ending that part of the ordeal.
Just getting them out was a miracle. But then the recovery begins, right? Physically and mentally.
Oh, definitely. The ordeal wasn't over just because they were out of the cave. They were immediately taken to a hospital in Chiang Rai and put into quarantine for careful monitoring.
Quarantine. Why?
Partly for infection control, but also to manage their recovery carefully. They needed vaccinations, rabies, tetanus, things you might encounter in a cave environment. And they needed to regain strength slowly after nearly 3 weeks, trapped with very little food or clean water.
And you can't just start eating normally after starving, right?
Exactly. Doctors were very concerned about something called refeeding syndrome. If you introduce calories too quickly after starvation, it can seriously mess up your body's electrolytes, cause vitamin deficiencies like thiamine. It can actually be dangerous, even fatal. So refeeding had to be managed very, very carefully.
Wow. Another hidden danger. And what about the mental side? The trauma?
A huge concern, obviously. Experts immediately flagged them as being at high risk for long-term psychological issues.
Like what?
Intense fears of the dark, water-enclosed spaces, potential for anxiety, depression, PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder.
Understandable.
For the coach, too, maybe grappling with guilt, even though reports suggest he did an amazing job keeping the boys calm. Families were briefed on how to help them ease back into normal life, what signs of distress to watch for, the need for potential professional help down the line.
I heard something about meditation playing a role while they were trapped.
Yes, that was widely reported. The coach had apparently taught the boys meditation techniques before, and he used them in the cave to help keep them calm, conserve energy, and manage their fear. A remarkable testament to mental resilience tools in such an extreme situation.
Incredible. Let's circle back to that decision about the anesthesia. It worked, miraculously, but it must have raised huge ethical questions.
Oh, absolutely. Huge. It pushed right up against fundamental medical ethics principles, especially around patient autonomy, the right to decide what happens to your own body, and informed consent.
Which they couldn't get.
Impossible. Not from the children, not realistically from the parents in that chaotic, high-pressure emergency situation. Normally, especially with kids, you'd have detailed discussions about risks, benefits, alternatives. None of that was feasible here.
So how do you justify proceeding without that, ethically?
In extreme life or death situations like this, the principle of beneficence, the duty to act in the patient's best interest to save their life, often has to take precedence.
So saving their lives outweighed the lack of consent.
That was the ethical calculation made by the team on the ground. It placed an almost unbelievable amount of trust and responsibility on the rescuers, particularly Dr. Harris and Dr. Challen administering the anesthesia. The meticulous planning, the world-class expertise, the attention to every tiny detail, those were crucial in trying to mitigate the massive risks they were taking.
And all under this intense global spotlight.
Exactly. Constant time pressure, the world watching. It just amplified the ethical weight of every single decision. It was ethical decision-making at its absolute sharpest edge.
The whole world was watching. The global response was pretty extraordinary, too.
It really was. The rescue became this incredible example of international cooperation. Volunteers, technical experts, government agencies from so many different countries just dropped everything and came to help.
Yeah.
They brought skills, equipment, resources, just a massive outpouring of support. And the public interest was intense. People everywhere were just glued to the news, hoping, praying. The relief when they were rescued was palpable globally.
And there were all sorts of offers of help, right?
Yeah.
Including that mini submarine.
Ah, yes, the Elon Musk mini-sub. That got quite a bit of attention.
But it wasn't actually used.
No, it wasn't used in the end. The rescue leaders on site assessed it and felt it wasn't really practical for the very narrow, twisting passages they were dealing with.
Right.
It led to a bit of unfortunate public back and forth, especially after one of the lead British divers, Vern Unsworth, was quite critical of its feasibility. But that was really a side story to the main event.
A minor distraction, yeah.
Yeah.
The real focus was on the incredible success and the people involved. What kind of recognition did the boys and the rescuers get afterwards?
They received loads of honors, quite rightly, both in Thailand and internationally. Invitations to big sporting events, awards for bravery and courage, tributes from all over the world. It was a fitting recognition of just, the human spirit and the extraordinary efforts involved.
So looking back now, what's the legacy? What are the big lessons from Tom Long?
Well, the cave itself, it's become a site of remembrance and also carefully managed tourism. There are plans for a museum there to commemorate the rescue.
And a memorial.
Yes, there's a memorial pavilion near the entrance with a statue of Saman Kunan, the seal who died, a very poignant tribute. Beyond the site itself, the event really highlighted just how critical good crisis management is, clear communication between everyone involved, and the absolute need to learn from these events to be better prepared next time.
It really does showcase so many aspects of humanity, good and bad, but mostly good in this case.
Absolutely. It's just this powerful story of resilience, isn't it? Community support that crossed borders, incredible courage from the rescuers, the boys, the coach. It showed the value of local knowledge, the power of volunteers, the amazing things people can do when they work together against impossible odds.
And the psychological side, too.
Definitely. It underscored the potential for deep trauma after events like this and how vital ongoing support is. And finally, it's become this unique, real-world case study in disaster ethics, making impossible decisions under unimaginable pressure.
This deep dive really has shown just the sheer scale of the challenges, the heroism, and the lessons learned from the Thai cave rescue. It's an amazing story of ingenuity, bravery, and global teamwork achieving something that seemed impossible.
It truly is. And maybe it leaves us, and you listening, with something to think about. Consider those ethical knots the rescue team faced, especially that unprecedented decision to use anesthesia. How do we balance that fundamental need to act in someone's best interest beneficence with the right to autonomy, especially when normal rules just don't apply in an extreme emergency? What does this whole event really tell us about human limits, resilience, and how much we rely on each other, on community, when things get really bad?
A lot to reflect on there. An incredible story with lessons that still resonate today.